I get up in there and swab that crankcase out a little bit better. Clean that groove out there for that O-ring. I've got a new one I'm going to put in there. My normal practice, that's the only place on this engine that I use that silicone. Well, we done got it took apart up to now. That fuel system, I'm not going to take the gas tank out. Seems to function pretty good. Clean that crankcase out there with some lacquer thinner. Clean that groove out for that O-ring there. Put a new O-ring in it. Clean up the cylinder. Slide it in there. I'm going to embed it with some silicone, front and back. I think it takes up the shock, maybe. I've did it that way for a long time. Seemed like it works. We'll try it one more time. It's come to the point of, at this point I have to make the decision as to this cylinder sleeve. Diagnosis was that it had some water, symptoms being excessive blow-by to the point that it blew vapor out from the housing sides. The rear breather was stopped up. I think probably some shellac had got softened by some oil contamination maybe, and stuck the crankcase breather, which caused the whole back pressure incident caused by excessive blow-by. When I took that off, this rear breather, there was some water in it. Well, about the only way it can get some water contamination is leaking around that O-ring on the cylinder sleeve. So just knowing the bare minimum of information about this engine, the note that came in with it said, get it running. And here I've done broke it down to almost a single piece in lieu of the gas tank. So this is the O-ring that was in this engine. And it looks to be in good condition. It's some kind of plastic material, nylon or something, and I'm not faulting it at all. It's just I think it's what you get if you order an O-ring on the internet. I think that's what you get. And this right here is what I'm going to put in the engine, and you can tell that if you just look at them, they're made out of something different. I'm not sure what that, some kind of plastic stuff. And this is like Buta-N or something like that. A professional type O-ring. They're the same size. And I'm going to put it up in that housing. And I'm going to embed that. I'm going to clean that out with some solvent thinner. Completely oil-free. And then I'm going to fill that trough that's milled into that block with some silicone, a new tube, and fill that up. And then I'm going to embed this O-ring I'm going to embed that O-ring there up in that trough in that housing with that silicone oozed out all the way around it to make a solid mask, I'm thinking. Masks, no boards. And then I put a little silicone around that cylinder sleeve itself and shove it up in there. And, I think that's about optimum. Ain't nothing else much you can do. Combine the old and the new. The instruction manual says to put together with some kind of axle grease or something. And I think that's what was used in this case. So that cylinder sleeve is something to be discussed also. And taking note as we go by the pile of parts, those rings are quite shiny. I haven't cleaned them up yet and investigated on them, but they're real shiny. They're kind of what you would call glazed over, kind of. Well, we'll get a close-up look at that when the time comes. I'm not sure about that. Well, I guess I should take that back. I am kind of sure about that. For them rings to be glazed over is of some concern. So, what we want to contend with that this engine had in it, I've cleaned the cylinder up, again. This is the second go around from me and Martin put it together. And so up to this point, and the engine has been run here at my house here. Engine's been run, and to get it up to temperature. And, that's when the back pressure come in to evident that something had to be done to the engine. And as taking it apart, it came to be that it was the big end rod bearing that is the loosest what we can get by with the wrist pin. So, back to this cylinder sleeve. Okay. I'd already shined the light up in there from over here. And you can see something. That's kind of what I see, really. That's pretty good representation. And you can see there were, up to the present, I worked that wire ring a way so that the piston rings could come past it and not cause a clatter. I'll work the rest of it on around now that I got on the workbench. You can hardly detect it other than a color change of the thickness of wire on this side. And on this side, it was quite a lot. Not meaning, some thousands, but I'm not sure. 6 or 8. So, let's say that was 6 thousandths. So that would be both sides, so that'd be 12 thousandths, just thinking about it out loud, To carry that discussion to up to work, let's to think about this engine at this point. This is the cylinder sleeve that comes in this engine. Okay, I think it's worn a lot, and it has rust pits. It has its problems, but I think the engine will still run quite well. So, in that frame of mind, I have elected to use this cylinder sleeve, and the contributing factor to that is I don't have another one. So I could probably go on the internet and buy one, but I don't know that this cylinder's bad. So I'm going to put it back in the engine. And the reason I'm saying I don't know it's bad is it's rusted a lot. If you look at it, it has quite a lot of rust pits. Okay, that in itself is not too detrimental to it. It's if you look in there with the flashlight, and I'm gonna describe it to you. Just picture this in your head. If you're interested in cylinder sleeves at all, take note. Pass it on to a friend. That's all I got to say about that. The description of this is, and I don't know about this engine other than Martin cleaned this engine up from a rusty derelict engine. The way that he described to me, it was just rusted to nothing, and he cleaned it up quite well, and it needed and someone right, so we got to take apart again to set whatever wasn't right. So if you look down in there, like up here at the front end, up in here, there's an area there that is factory original there that the piston don't come past, combustion chamber. Okay, that's as new, right down past it, and in some incidents, well, from there down to the other end down there, about 2 inches up this way, the cylinder is actually polished to a shiny condition, if I described it right. From right down there, well, yes, all the way except in the bottom there where that it's had, there's a, you know, like the engine set in ditch bank for some time with some condensation in the bottom of it. It was kind of at a tilt, and at the edge of that condensation is where the rust line is at, and you can see it there. Well, I'm not even positive that there's not a leak in the, it's quite, there's one section here, like right in here is real porous. It's a bad casting. There's 2 sections on it. Like right here, okay, it corresponds in there. If you look at it, you can tell that them rust spots carries through. So my question is I think it was put in electrolysis tank. I think that's the way Martin cleaned this, was with electrolysis. And I wondered, did the electrolysis, now this is just a far-fetched idea of thinking, but could it be possible that these ports are porous enough for water to escape them? You know, you have to think about that. But anyways, not to be deterred, I'm going to go ahead and use this. I'm going to put it right back in there. And I've done already tuck this edge off here with a blade so that the piston rings can go up in that easily enough. And then on the other end, on this end, I took the file and knocked that edge off right there all the way around, and then some light duty sandpaper. That's about 1200 or something other. And I done went around 3 or 4 times to polish that area. Okay, when that helps when you get ready to push it back in that cylinder, it'll go right up in there with no hesitation more than the compression of the O-ring itself. Before, there was a machine line there, a little edge, and I've had them in the past to give me problems before I actually just did that as another step to make it easier. But it looks good in the thread in there, best I can tell. You know, looking at it down in there, it looks okay. I'm gonna run a tap in it, but it looks normal. It does have some marks on the front of it there where it's been beat with something, but I'm not sure. But you can see up in the cylinder, there's like 2-inch increments, like where the piston moved, you know, like it was stuck up there at the front and it had some acid or something cleaning in it, okay? And you tried to move it, it moved about 2 inches, you know, and you cleaned it again, you cleaned again. That's what that looks like in there. But I'm gonna run that hone in there. Yeah, I'm not gonna run this thing here in here. That's one of them hones that has them little things on right there, that a flex hone or something they call that. You put it right up in there and it hones out your cylinder. That's what that is. They work good if you use it where you need it. It's the tool to use, but it's not the tool to use in this cylinder sleeve. Reason being is this thing right here removes the highs and the lows. And on this cylinder here, it being wore, we don't want to take any lows away. When we run a hone through there, we only want to take the high spots, even to the point you leave some of them lows. Not this tool. And the one I'm going to use right here, it's, you put it in there like that right there and run a drill to it, you up and down through there all the way from one end to the other, and leave it in a hex cone. And that's like that grit there's probably like, that might be 180 or 220, somewhere in that range. But, so, anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it back in there, and if it ain't right later on, you know, you can pull the sleeve out and put another in there, you know.